Commander Jessica Martinez wasn't expecting her Thursday morning to be any different from the thousands that came before. The sun over New Earth Colony was rising just right, casting a soft golden hue across the skyline. Her apartment smelled like fresh brewed coffee, her favorite blend, perfectly balanced between bold and smooth. She sat in her favorite armchair, wrapped in a blanket she'd had since her academy days, savoring the stillness. This was her sanctuary, a hard-earned moment of peace after decades of interstellar command and conflict. These days, Jess was just a mom who had traded battlecruisers and tactical formations for laundry, school pickups, and teaching her teenage son how to properly load a dishwasher, something she suspected was more difficult than commanding a fleet. Then the call came. Her communicator chimed softly on the end table, and she glanced at it lazily. Starbridge Academy. Read the glowing text. Probably some field trip permission issue or reminder about next week's parent-teacher conference. She tapped the answer button, expecting something routine. "Commander Martinez," said a nervous voice. "This is Principal Wong from Starbridge Academy. There's been incident." Her coffee cup froze midair, inches from her lips. The warmth of the apartment suddenly felt distant, replaced by a chill that crawled down her spine. Her motherly instincts, those same instincts that had been forged in the fires of battle and tempered by years of civilian life, flared into full alert. "What kind of incident?" she asked slowly, her voice low and dangerous. "Well, you see, during today's field trip to Centaur Station, we seem to have temporarily lost track of your son's group." Silence. Silence. She set the cup down with the kind of deliberate calm that only someone with decades of military experience could manage. The ceramic clinked gently against the coaster, but the sound echoed like a starting gun in her mind. "Principal Wong," she said, her voice ice cold. "Are you telling me that you lost my 16-year-old son somewhere on a space station the size of Manhattan?" "Not lost exactly," Wong stammered. "More like temporarily misplaced. Security is currently—" "How long?" she interrupted, her voice sharp and unmistakably lethal. "I beg your pardon. I said, how long has my son been, as you put it, temporarily misplaced?" "About 6 hours." Another beat of silence. 3 seconds exactly. Anyone who had served with or against Commander Jessica Martinez would have recognized this moment. It was the stillness before a tactical strike, the deep breath before a plasma cannon fired. Jess stood up, already moving toward the hallway closet. 6 hours, she repeated in a whisper, her tone as calm as it was terrifying. Inside the closet hung her old command uniform, its black and silver fabric still crisp despite years in storage. She hadn't worn it in years, not since she retired to live a quieter life, one far from political negotiations and armed standoffs. But now, looking at it, she didn't hesitate. She reached for it without a second thought. Wong was still talking, oblivious to the firestorm he had just unleashed. "We wanted to complete a thorough search before alarming any—" "I'm going to stop you right there, Principal," she snapped, pulling the uniform from its hanger. "Because I can feel my blood pressure rising to levels that probably violate at least 3 interstellar weapons conventions." She tapped her wrist communicator, pulling up military channels she hadn't touched in years. Her fingers moved with muscle memory, scanning for names she hadn't called in over a decade. Some owed her favors. Others owed her everything. "You're going to send me every scrap of data you have," she ordered, not waiting for acknowledgement. "Security feeds, sensor logs, the names of everyone Alex was with. And then you're going to alert station security that Commander Martinez is coming. They'll know what that means." "Commander, please," Wong tried to protest. "There are diplomatic protocols." Jess laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not even an angry one. It was the kind of laugh that made battle-hardened soldiers reevaluate their career choices. "Oh, honey," she said. "I haven't even begun to violate diplomatic protocols yet." She stepped into her uniform, one piece at a time, each component clicking into place with a finality that made her heart race. It still fit. The armor systems booted up automatically, humming to life as if it too had been waiting for this day. Tactical overlays flared in her vision. Muscle memory kicked in. Her spine straightened. Her heartbeat slowed. But this wasn't just about command. This wasn't a mission for glory or medals. This was about Alex, her sweet, scatterbrained, brilliant son who couldn't remember to pack his lunch but could explain wormhole theory like he was reciting a bedtime story. The boy who had her sense of humor and his father's insatiable curiosity. The boy who still gave her a hug every night, even though he tried to act too cool for it. And now, someone had dared to take him. Her jaw set like steel. Jess walked into her small personal hangar, past the neatly kept shuttle she hadn't flown in months, and spoke into her comm. "Martinez to orbital command." A pause, then a confused voice answered. "Orbital command here, Commander? Is that?" "I'm activating emergency protocol, Monic." "Monic? I don't see that in the standard registry." The M stands for missing, as in missing child. If you look under subsection "Don't ever piss off a mother," you'll find the authorization code. Silence. "Then yes, ma'am," Protocol Monic acknowledged. As the shuttle systems powered up, a quiet fire burned behind Jess's eyes. She tapped into the long-dormant command network, summoned allies, and began compiling a mental list of people who were about to have the worst day of their lives. "Hang on, baby," she whispered, her voice fierce and unshakable. "Mom's coming. And may whatever gods these idiots believe in help anyone who gets in my way." Because in the vast, cold, unfeeling stretch of the galaxy, there were only 3 things you never messed with: black holes, antimatter explosions, and a human mother looking for her child. Jess was all 3. As Jessica Martinez sat in the cockpit of her personal shuttle, fingers moving with mechanical precision, the full weight of what she was about to do settled over her, but not in a way that gave her pause. If anything, it felt familiar, comforting, like putting on an old pair of gloves before doing something dangerous yet necessary. The cockpit lights flickered to life. Systems she hadn't touched in years responded as if no time had passed. The main console welcomed her by name, its soft AI voice devoid of judgment. The shuttle, just like her old command cruiser, still remembered who she was, and it still obeyed. "Martinez to orbital command," she said calmly into the comm. A young voice answered. "Orbital command here. Ah, Commander Martinez, is that really you?" "I'm activating emergency protocol, Monic." Applause. A pause. "Monic," the operator repeated, clearly confused. "I don't see that protocol listed in the standard crisis database." Jess didn't even flinch. The EM stands for missing, as in missing child. And if you check under the subsection titled "Don't ever piss off a mother," you'll find everything you need. The silence that followed wasn't uncertainty. It was awe. "Yes, ma'am. Understood." Outside her viewport, the docking clamps disengaged, and the shuttle lifted effortlessly into the sky, rising above the calm skyline of New Earth Colony. As the clouds parted and the black void of space revealed itself, Jess could feel the transformation completing. She wasn't just a mom anymore. She was the Commander Martinez, the one who made entire fleets surrender without a shot, the one who wrote half the modern rules of engagement. And right now, she was writing new ones. Her fingers danced across the console, pulling in old contacts, accessing encrypted channels, triggering dormant alliances. Some were surprised to hear from her. Others responded instantly, no questions, no hesitation. Everyone remembered Jess Martinez. And everyone understood. If she was back, someone had messed up badly. She sent out encrypted requests for station logs, movement records, and communications data. She forwarded orders to activate deep surveillance satellites and trace ion trails. Every resource she had ever built over her long career, she now pointed at one goal: finding her son. And she wasn't doing it quietly. Her name hit the security waves like a thunderclap. Messages flooded in questions, requests for clarification, even pleas for calm. She ignored them all. Jess wasn't here to explain. She was here to fix what should never have been broken in the first place. "Begin external comm sequence," she ordered. A small chime confirmed the request. "This is Commander Martinez," she announced over the interstellar emergency frequency. "To all ships, stations, and colonies within 5 light-years of Centaur Station, I am enacting emergency protocol Monic. You are to give me unrestricted access to all security feeds, docking records, and transport logs for the last 12 hours. Any refusal to comply will be treated as obstruction of a galactic-level rescue operation." Her voice was calm, precise, lethal. The response was immediate. Varian border stations began forwarding encrypted archives. Centaur Station's administration tried to delay, but suddenly found themselves on the receiving end of high-level override commands bearing her old clearance codes that had never been deactivated. Jess smiled coldly. "Told you they'd remember." In the back of her mind, memories stirred. Old battles, tense negotiations, last-minute rescue operations that had turned the tide of entire wars. She had led troops across battlefields strewn with chaos. She had navigated black holes and assassins, political traps, and nuclear threats. But nothing, not war, not death, not galactic bureaucracy, was more motivating than knowing her son was in danger. She tapped into the military-grade systems embedded within her shuttle silent features she had insisted remain operational, just in case. The phrase had seemed paranoid to some, nostalgic to others. Now it was prophecy. A ping drew her attention. One of her flagged requests had returned data, a suspicious ion trail, unregistered vessel. Departed shortly after the 7-minute security blackout on Centaur Station. That wasn't coincidence. That was a mistake, and whoever had made it, they were about to feel the full consequences of underestimating a human mother. She opened a new channel. "Jess, to Admiral Chen." A moment later, a gruff voice answered. "Jessica, it's been years. You better not be calling to drag me in too." "I need to borrow something," she cut in. "What?" The F's Thunderchild. Dead silence. "That ship's been mothballed for 3 years. I never gave up my command codes." "You're serious. Dead serious." "My son's been taken." Another pause, then a long sigh. "I'll forward your codes to Orbital Command. But Jess..." "I know," she said quietly. "No trail, no records. I was never here." "No. I mean, bring it back in one piece." Jess let out the closest thing to a laugh she'd allowed herself since the call came in. "No promises." Within minutes, her shuttle approached the military dock, where the hulking form of the Thunderchild waited in orbit like a sleeping giant. It had been her ship, her flagship, her second home for over a decade, and now it would be her sword once again. "Thunderchild, this is Commander Martinez," she said as she entered the command bay. "Initiate startup sequence, Alpha 79. Authorization. No one takes my kid." The ship's AI responded immediately, its voice as smooth and loyal as ever. "Welcome back, Commander. Systems are coming online. Shall I prepare diplomatic protocols?" "Oh no, sweetie," Jess whispered as she stepped into the command chair, her armor hissing softly as it adjusted to her posture. "We're way past diplomatic." From orbit, the ship lit up like a war god, awakening shields activating, engines humming, weapons systems running silent checks. Every bolt and circuit remembered her. Every deck echoed with old battles. As the Thunderchild broke orbit, streaking toward the stars in pursuit of a single ion trail, the galaxy began to stir. Because word was spreading fast, Commander Martinez was back in the sky, and she wasn't on a mission from Earth Command. She was on a mission from Mom. And if you think diplomacy is terrifying, you've never seen a mother with a battle cruiser. The Thunderchild sliced through space like a predator unleashed. Its massive frame hummed with power. Shields fully charged, weapons systems standing by. Jessica Martinez sat at the helm, calm, focused, and burning with a quiet fury that no alien bureaucracy could withstand. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was personal, and that made her unstoppable. 15 minutes after departing New Earth orbit, she docked with Centaur Station, if you could call what happened docking. In truth, The station's automated systems barely had time to grant her clearance before the Thunderchild took control of the traffic grid and slid itself into place with military precision. Jess didn't wait for permission. She was done asking nicely. The moment she stepped off the ramp in full uniform, she became a living legend stalking polished corridors. Her old command armor, matty black and battle-worn, drew stares. The way she moved, shoulders squared, boots clicking in perfect rhythm, sent quiet ripples of fear down every hallway she passed through. The legends about Commander Martinez weren't exaggerated. They just didn't include the part where she went mom mode. Security Chief Cass, a towering Andromedan with more arms than he had excuses, met her at the station's central hub. He tried to hold his ground. He even attempted a courteous smile, but Jess could see the sweat already forming beneath his silver uniform collar. "Commander Martinez," he greeted, forcing confidence into his voice. "Welcome to Centaur Station. I understand your son's group is involved in a current investigation. We're working diligently." "What do you mean?" she interrupted. "You can't access the station security feeds." Cass blinked, surprised by her immediate knowledge of the situation. "Well, technically, we can, but there's been a minor administrative delay." Jess folded her arms, letting her silence speak for her. "There was an oversight with Form X-228, Cass admitted, shifting awkwardly. "It wasn't submitted in triplicate, and Sector 7 is still waiting on approval." "Oh," Jess said, her voice soft like velvet over broken glass. "So because some paper pusher didn't get their afternoon snack, we don't have eyes on the last known location of 16 children." "I wouldn't put it that way." "Good," she cut in, pulling out her communicator. "Then you won't mind me making a few calls." She turned slightly, just enough to give him space to panic. 3 calls later, 2 to allies, 1 thinly veiled threat involving the Rillian Embassy's holiday party incident, and Jess had what she needed: access codes, station logs, and, most importantly, the security footage that someone had tried to bury beneath red tape. The video showed Alex and his classmates walking toward the station's xenobiology museum. Then, 7 minutes of black. When the footage resumed, the kids were gone. Jess narrowed her eyes. "Well, that's convenient." She pulled up a separate file, the maintenance logs. Cross-referencing them took less than a minute. Her suspicions were confirmed. The 7-minute blackout had coincided perfectly with a scheduled systems update, one that wasn't supposed to happen for another 3 days. "Hey, Cass," she said, turning back to the sweating security chief. "Want to explain how a station that hasn't had a single blackout in 6 months just happened to lose all footage at the exact moment my son vanished?" Cass's skin shifted to a pale lavender hue. "That is quite a coincidence." "I stopped believing in coincidences around the same time I stopped believing in the Tooth Fairy," Jess replied, already moving. "Now tell me, who has access to your security systems?" As it turned out, only 3 people needed a little encouragement to hand over critical details. The first was a maintenance worker, paid to look the other way during the routine update. The second, a dock technician, remembered seeing an unmarked transport ship leave the station immediately after the blackout. And the third, customs officer with suspiciously shiny boots and a brand new hovercar, had processed a barely legal shipment with mostly in-order paperwork. Jess loomed over his desk, arms crossed. "You're telling me," she asked slowly, "that you saw a transport vessel carrying unregistered life forms, and you didn't report it because the paperwork looked official?" The officer, a nervous Vianian with wide eyes and twitchy fingers, nodded. It had a stamp, very official, smiling face, whiskers. Jess picked up the form. "This isn't a security seal. It's a sticker of a cartoon cat." "I thought it was a New Earth symbol," he stammered. "You humans are always adding quirky things." Jess sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. "Right, because our galactic seal now includes a kitty emoji." She exhaled through her teeth. "You know what I'm going to do now?" The officer gulped. "Call security?" "No," Jess said, smiling. "I'm going to call Admiral Chen. You remember him, don't you? The one who's been dying to audit this sector's customs division for the past 3 years." The color drained from the officer's face. "Oh, and while he's doing that," she continued, "already heading for the exit, I'm going to borrow something." "Borrow what?" "Just a little thing I used to command. The F's Thunderchild, lovely ship, still has all its weapons, still obeys my voice." "You can't. That's against at least 17 regulations." 17? Jess raised an eyebrow. Adorable. By the time she reached the Thunderchild's dock, she already had a target. The unmarked transport ship had left a distinct ion trail, a shimmering fingerprint in space. It led directly to the Varian sector, a notoriously by-the-book regime that loved protocols more than actual safety. Jess activated her command channel. "Thunderchild, prepare to jump. We've got a lead." The ship responded instantly, its AI chiming with readiness. As the engine spooled up, Jess settled back into her seat. Her hands hovered over the console, fingers steady. Somewhere, her son was scared, maybe hungry, maybe hurt. And she was going to find him even if she had to dismantle the entire galactic bureaucratic order to do it. The Varians were about to learn something the hard way. Paperwork can't stop a mother with a battlecruiser. The Varian Empire was legendary for two things: its bureaucracy and its belief that bureaucracy could solve everything. It was a civilization built on forms, triplicate approvals, and procedural rigor so dense it could smother a supernova. Their central station, the beating heart of their administrative complex, resembled a floating monument to filing cabinets and numbered queues. So when an unauthorized vessel approached without pre-submitted forms TRER 459B versus 223A and AX 991, Varian protocol dictated a polite, if firm, warning. "Unidentified vessel," came the official transmission, delivered in a monotone voice that sounded as though it had never known joy. "Please submit form TAR 459B for unauthorized approach versus 223E for vessel registration, and AX 991 to request permission to submit the previous forms." Jessica Martinez leaned back in her command chair aboard the F's Thunderchild, fingers steepled, expression unreadable. The Varians had no idea what was coming. "How about," she said sweetly, "we try something different?" She tapped a button on the console, bringing up a transmission loop. "I'm looking for my son," she said, her voice calm but laced with steel. Human teenager, about yay tall, probably rolled his eyes at least 3 times in the last hour. Might have made a few sarcastic remarks. Ring any bells? There was a pause. Then, any inquiries regarding potentially trafficked sentience must be submitted via Form H-776, subsection 12, paragraph. The rest of the sentence was swallowed in static as Jess fired a warning shot not at the station itself, but at their precious satellite repository. The explosion lit up the space just beyond the station's perimeter, and hundreds of neatly archived forms erupted from the satellite like bureaucratic confetti. "Oh my," Jess said, mock surprise in her voice. "Would you look at that? Seems someone forgot to file their satellite protection form. Ps 887 if memory serves." TSK. Panic erupted across Varian comms channels. "Do you realize what you've done?" one voice screamed. Those were the only hard copies of the W-Series amendments. Jess widened her eyes in mock horror. All the copies? In this digital age? What a terrible coincidence. She gave them exactly 3 minutes before switching to a private frequency and forcing a connection with Varian High Administrator Crix, an amphibious-looking official who had the air of someone born inside a procedural handbook. "Commander Martinez," he wheezed, his gill plates fluttering. "This is highly irregular. The proper procedure for locating missing persons requires." "Trixie," Jess cut in smoothly, "you see those forms floating in space? That's going to be your entire bureaucratic system in about 10 minutes if you don't start giving me straight answers." "Are you threatening the Varian Empire?" "No," Jess said flatly. "I'm reminding you that this is a mother looking for her child. And right now, my ship's sensors are tracking the same ion trail that led me here. Funny thing about ion trails, they don't lie." especially when they suggest a ship passed through your sector carrying multiple teenage life signatures. Crix turned an unsettling shade of chartreuse. That information is classified under wrong answer. Jess's fingers danced across the console. You know what's not classified. The fact that your entire administrative subnet is protected by a password that hasn't been updated since the Proxim War. Would be a shame if someone were to, I don't know, release everyone's search histories onto the public net. You wouldn't dare. I once made a pirate fleet surrender by threatening to send their private logs to their mothers. Try me. 15 seconds later, Crix folded like a bad poker hand. Yes, he barked. The transport did pass through here, but it didn't stop. It continued on toward the Meridian Collective. We didn't know it was carrying children. Jess raised an eyebrow. Didn't know or didn't check? The silence was answer enough. Well, she said cheerfully, thank you for your cooperation. One last thing, you might want to file Form DC 334s. What is that? Damage control. Because in about 30 seconds, your entire regulatory system is going to be automatically translated into interpretive dance diagrams. Before Crix could respond, Jess ended the call. Behind her, the crew of the Thunderchild chuckled nervously. She hadn't technically lied. The station's outdated firewall had been laughably easy to exploit. And with a simple push of a button, every database now read like a children's coloring book hosted at an avant-garde theater show. As the Thunderchild broke away from Varian space, Jess allowed herself a brief, satisfied breath. 1 empire down. 2 to go. She adjusted course toward the Meridian Collective, their so-called neutral zone with a reputation for looking the other way when money changed hands. She knew the trail wouldn't go cold just yet. In the meantime, the Varians scrambled behind her, desperately trying to restore order while dodging paperwork that now danced across screens like a Broadway production. Their IT department would be working overtime for months, and somewhere in the margins of every newly generated form, a small doodle now appeared, an angry human mother wielding a battlecruiser. Call it a glitch. Call it a warning. Either way, the Galaxy was learning fast. You don't mess with a human mom. Especially not one who writes her own rules. The Meridian Collective had a reputation, not the kind posted on interstellar travel boards, but the kind spoken about in hushed tones among smugglers, bounty hunters, and traders who didn't want too many questions asked. Officially, it was a peaceful trading zone. Unofficially, it was a 5-star haven for black market deals, untraceable shipments, and no questions asked docking. Jessica Martinez was about to ruin all of that. The F's Thunderchild dropped out of warp just outside Meridian space, its engines humming with readiness, its weapons fully calibrated. Jess stared at the looming silhouette of the Collective's main hub, a sprawling tangle of ports, domes, antenna arrays, and landing bays like someone had given a junkyard gravity and told it to improvise. Unidentified vessel came a smooth, placating voice over comms. Welcome to the Meridian Collective. Please note that all weapons must be powered down before entering our airspace. This is a peaceful trading zone. Jess snorted, peaceful my ass. She leaned toward the console and spoke calmly into the mic. Quick question. How much did they pay you to look the other way when a transport full of stolen teenagers came through your gate? Silence. Then the channel cut. Thought so, she muttered, cracking her neck. Then she smiled. Computer, she said, voice playful now. Initiate operation. Rock concert. The Thunderchild's external audio systems came online. A beat later, the unmistakable opening riff of Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses exploded across every local frequency. The music was deafening raw, unapologetic, and precisely tuned to wreak havoc on the Collective's cheap imported shield systems. Jess didn't wait for an invitation. As the music echoed across the system, she activated the ship's full weapon suite. Not to fire yet, but to light the sky with power signatures so intimidating that several minor patrol ships peeled off without even bothering to issue a warning. Inside the Collective's control tower, panic was rapidly building. What is this noise? One? Control cried. Our shield harmonics are fluctuating frequencies are interfering with the modulation grid. Jess was already grinning. Oh, this, she said sweetly. This is Earth culture at its finest. Her fingers moved quickly across her interface. You see, your defense grid is based on Centurion knockoff technology, cheap and easily overwhelmed, especially when exposed to very specific audio frequencies, like, say, the exact bass line in Slash's guitar solo. Right on cue, the station's defense grid flickered, then strobed like a light show at a Terran rave. Docking clamps malfunctioned. Perimeter sensors started blinking out. Jess turned the volume up another notch. Let's talk, she said over the chaos, about that transport ship, the one with the missing kids. Ring any bells, or should I crank up some classic ADDC next? The response came in the form of a new voice, deeper, more authoritative. This is Station Commander Vex. You are in violation of 17 Meridian protocols. Stand down immediately. Jess didn't even look up from her console. 17, she repeated with a raised brow. That's adorable. She pulled up the station's internal schematic already hacked into while Vex had been distracted yelling about rules. You know what else is in violation? She continued. Your entire security system. I've got cameras cycling in sync with my playlist, and your internal network is now broadcasting another one bites the dust on every floor. What? What? That's impossible. Oh, it's very possible. I just rerouted your main comms loop through your entertainment array. She smirked. Nice sound system, by the way. Really brings out the bass. The lights in the station began pulsing rhythmically. Security cameras panned and zoomed like backup dancers. Somewhere deep in the engineering bay, the AI had apparently embraced the chaos and begun projecting dancing holograms. I'll give you one more chance, Jess said, turning the music down just enough to be heard. Where is that ship? More silence. Then, like magic, another voice broke in, filled with barely restrained panic. The transport went to the Crimson Dominion. They were the ones who arranged the pickup, recruits for their academy program. We didn't know. Jess cut the channel and leaned back. See, that wasn't so hard. But she wasn't done. Computer, she said, voice low. Initiate operation. Boy band. The Thunderchild systems launched into a new mode, flooding every nearby ship in the collective's fleet with synchronized dancing instructions for bye in sync. Fun fact, Jess said aloud as chaos erupted across the station. Your fleet's navigation systems all run on the same comm frequency. Another fun fact, sync's rhythm patterns match that frequency almost perfectly. Outside the window, the collective ships began drifting out of formation. Some swinging wildly, others spinning in sync. Their targeting arrays blinked helplessly as Jess's ship weaved through them untouched. Commander, her ship's AI chimed. Multiple biosigns detected in the lower levels of the station. Human, teenage. Jess cracked her knuckles. Bingo. She activated the Thunderchild's drone bay, but these weren't ordinary drones. They were small, round, and incredibly loud. Thousands of them launched from the ship's undercarriage and zipped into the station like bees from a hive, except these bees were programmed with one mission: locate and protect the children, while blaring Baby Shark on loop at max volume. What are those? Vex's voice screeched. Just some modified cleaning bots, Jess replied innocently. They're also loaded with every embarrassing childhood story a mother could possibly tell. Want to hear what your mom said about your little bedwetting problem? How do you know my name? A mother, she said, grinning, knows everything. Inside the station, chaos became complete. Security doors began opening and closing to the beat of Macarena. Life support systems started humming All Star by Smash Mouth. And leading the charge through it all, Jess's drones, singing I Will Always Love You in perfect harmony while gently herding the missing teenagers toward the evacuation hangar. Mom? Alex's voice came through the comm, full of disbelief. Is that you? Jess smiled. Hi, sweetheart. How was your field trip? Mom, the cleaning robots are dancing. One of them's playing Imka. Yes, dear. They're very enthusiastic. She turned back to the command deck. Now, she said, her voice hardening, let's have a chat with the Crimson Dominion. The music faded behind her as the Thunderchild surged toward its next destination, its engines burning bright. Behind them, the Meridian Collective's proud security network lay in digital ruins. Their defense grid had been hacked by a playlist. Their ship's line danced into humiliation. And somewhere in the wreckage of their pride, a note was already being drafted. New directive: never mess with human children, especially if their mom has a battle cruiser and access to Spotify. The Crimson Dominion was not a place for the faint of heart. It was an empire carved from chaos, ruthless, blood-soaked, and fearsome. Their main base, embedded in the heart of a red nebula, was a fortress unlike any other. A jagged asteroid the size of Earth's moon, bristling with cannons, shields, and enough firepower to vaporize a planet. But even they weren't prepared for what was coming. Especially not for a battlecruiser commanded by a mom on a mission, and definitely not for the musical invasion that would follow. As the F's Thunderchild jumped into Dominion space, proximity alarms shrieked across the Dominion's control decks. Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space, a gravelly voice snapped over comms. Identify yourself or be destroyed. Jessica Martinez leaned forward in her command chair. Oh, sweetie, she said with the gentleness of a hurricane. I'm about to identify myself all over your defense systems. But first, let's talk about your new recruitment drive. There was a pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Jess smiled as she pulled up a recorded transmission from Alex's last known signal. The sound of his voice filled the Thunderchild's bridge. Hey, Mom, the field trip's going great. Though some weird guys in red uniforms keep watching us. They have this symbol that looks like a burning crown or something. Silence followed. The kind that came before every war. That's right, Jess continued, voice low. You kidnapped my son. My son, my son. The same one who once programmed my coffee maker to play show tunes because he thought it was funny. The one who still writes, I love you in binary in the corner of my birthday cards. And you thought you could take him and not face consequences? A nervous muttering rippled across the Dominion's comm lines. Commander, the Thunderchild's AI chimed. Crimson ships launching from the asteroid base. Jess sighed and cracked her knuckles. So we're doing this the hard way. She tapped the console. Initiate operation, boy band. And with that, the chaos truly began. The Thunderchild flooded the enemy fleet's comm systems with a perfectly timed musical assault. NSYNC's Bye 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 roared across every ship's channel, overwhelming standard signal buffers. Jess's ship began broadcasting synchronized choreography data, which just so happened to interfere with the Crimson Fleet's nav systems. The result: total mayhem. Enemy ships started moving in sync, rotating, drifting, pivoting as if choreographed by a hyperactive teenager. Their engines pulsed in time with the beat, weapons flickering like disco lights. Formations collapsed, battle plans dissolved. Jess grinned. Fun fact: your fleet's guidance systems run on an outdated protocol that syncs with rhythmic waveforms. Another fun fact: pop music from Earth's late 20th century, practically designed to exploit that flaw. Her crew, what little of it remained on standby, watched in stunned silence as the most feared criminal fleet in 3 sectors flailed helplessly through space like they were auditioning for a music video. But Jess wasn't finished. Commander, the AI said, I've isolated human teenage biosignatures deep within the asteroid base, secured behind multiple lockdown fields. Jess nodded. Time to send in the cavalry. She opened the drone bay, except these weren't your standard military drones. These were Jess's own personal creations. Modified cleaning bots retrofitted with speaker arrays, searchlights, and the most obnoxious playlist Earth had ever cursed the stars with. Deploy operation. Soccer mom, she said. Thousands of tiny robots launched from the Thunderchild in all directions, swarming the asteroid base with surprising grace. They zipped through corridors, bypassed locks, and latched onto the base's internal systems. As they did, Baby Shark blared from their speakers on loop at maximum volume. The Dominion security teams tried to resist. They really did. But when doors started opening and closing to the rhythm of Macarena, and life support systems began softly humming All Star by Smash Mouth, morale began to crack. And when the robots began projecting holographic recordings of embarrassing childhood stories across command centers, it shattered. "Commander Cracks," Jess called over an open channel, "would you like to hear what your mother said about your space ballet recital? I've got video." "How do you know my name?" "A mother knows everything, darling." Inside the asteroid, chaos ruled. Alarms clashed with music. Hallways lit up like dance floors. And in the middle of it all, the teenagers, scared, tired but unharmed, were being gently herded by robots singing, "I will always love you" in perfect harmony. "Lon?" came a familiar voice over the comm. "Is that you causing all this chaos?" Jess smiled. "Hi, sweetie. How was your field trip?" There's a robot dancing with a guard." "Yes, dear. They're very enthusiastic. Stay with them. They know what they're doing." Back on the open channel, Jess addressed the crumbling Crimson Command. "Here's what's gonna happen. You're going to surrender. You're going to release every child you've taken. Then, we're going to sit down and have a very awkward conversation about your life choices." "You're bluffing," someone screamed. "There's no way you have." A hologram lit up the outer surface of the asteroid, visible from every deck and viewing port. It was a young Commander Cracks, maybe 6 years old in footy pajamas, clutching a stuffed Earth kitten and proudly reciting a poem about butterflies. The surrender was immediate. No weapons fired, no shots exchanged. Just one mother, one battlecruiser, and the threat of eternal embarrassment. As the teenagers were safely evacuated, the Crimson Dominion's leadership was taken into custody by arriving galactic authorities who were equally amused and horrified by the state of the base. Alex stood beside his mom on the bridge of the Thunderchild, eyes wide. "Did you really conquer 3 star systems just to find me?" Jess wrapped her arms around him. "Conquer? No, I just had a few firmly worded conversations about child safety." And behind them, the galaxy reeled. 3 major powers humiliated, crime rings broken, entire bureaucracies dismantled by playlists and parental instinct. And across multiple sectors, a new warning was quietly added to every criminal dossier. Never mess with human children, especially if their mother has access to warships and boy bands. News of what had just happened spread across the galaxy faster than any quantum transmission ever could. It wasn't the kind of story you could suppress with PR spin or diplomatic denials. No, this was something else entirely, something that rewrote the rules of engagement, diplomacy, and galactic common sense in real time. Footage of heavily armed Crimson Dominion mercenaries awkwardly performing synchronized dance routines while being herded by singing cleaning bots flooded the galactic network. Clips of robotic drones playing Baby Shark while prying open prison cells went viral in under an hour. And the crowning jewel, Commander Cracks surrendering in tears as his holographic childhood recital played above the Crimson base, became the most viewed broadcast in history. The galaxy didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or immediately call their mothers. Back on Earth, the Galactic Security Council convened an emergency meeting. Not about a war or a coup or an economic collapse. No, this meeting was about one mom. A mom who had, in a course of 36 hours, neutralized 3 major powers, destabilized centuries of bureaucratic authority, and made multiple criminal syndicates surrender without firing a single lethal shot. Jessica Martinez sat at the center of the council chamber, calm as ever, sipping from a mug that read "World's Most Dangerous Mom." It was a gift from Alex, who now sat quietly beside her, munching on a protein bar like this was just another Tuesday. "Commander Martinez," Admiral Chen said, trying very hard not to laugh, "Well, we appreciate your unique approach to crisis resolution. There are concerns about your methods." Jess raised an eyebrow. "Which method specifically? The part where I made the Varian Empire's bureaucracy speak in rhyming couplets?" Or the part where I turned the most feared criminal organization in the quadrant into a viral dance troupe? There was an uncomfortable cough from a Proximum ambassador. Well, Olive, actually. Another delegate, a tall, green-scaled representative from Andromeda, cleared his throat politely. For what it's worth, our planetary military training units have requested licensing rights to your playlist. Morale has never been higher. Aurelian Diplomat chimed in. We've also received 17 formal petitions from various civilizations requesting assistance in implementing what they're calling the Human Mother Protocol into their defense infrastructure. Jess tilted her head. Human Mother Protocol. Apparently, the ambassador continued, they want to integrate AI decision-making that mimics your emotional intensity, improvisational threat analysis, and, quote, ability to weaponize emotional guilt and childhood stories at tactical scale. Jess tried not to laugh, but failed. Admiral Chen rubbed his temples. Jessica, you humiliated a third of the known criminal underworld with music, memes, and cleaning robots. You realize what this means for interstellar relations? Jess took another sip of coffee. Yeah, it means crime rates are down, and no one's kidnapped a kid in 2 days. They're afraid of you, he said. Good. The council fell into silence, not out of fear, but reverence. The Varians, despite the complete collapse of their form-based system, reported a 300% increase in administrative efficiency. Something about replacing convoluted application processes with karaoke-based communication had cut down on delays. A delegation was already drafting legislation to require every bureaucratic terminal to include a Hug Your Mother checkbox. Meanwhile, the Meridian Collective had rebranded entirely. Their once impenetrable security teams were now a traveling dance troupe. Their security bots had formed a band. And Commander Vex, former enforcer of shadow markets, was last seen performing interpretive dance on a charity tour across 4 sectors. And as for the Crimson Dominion, they didn't just surrender, they converted. Their asteroid fortress was now home to a performing arts academy, funded and protected by the same galactic council that had once feared them. Jess received daily updates from the former commander, now known as Director Krax, who sent photos of his students learning jazz hands. So, Chen said finally, trying to bring the meeting back on track. While technically nothing you did violated the letter of intergalactic law, we'd like to ask you to perhaps avoid conquering any more star systems during future rescue operations. Conquer? Jess blinked innocently. I didn't conquer anything. I simply reminded people to behave. The council didn't know what to do with her. On paper, she was retired, off-duty, a civilian. But she still had access to command codes most generals would kill for, and now she had something far more dangerous than military clearance: influence. Entire sectors were modeling new security systems after her tactics. Parents across Earth and allied colonies were demanding Thunderchild-style response protocols for missing children. The galactic network was flooded with remixes of her playlist, memes of her death glare, and tributes to the first interstellar space mom. As if to prove the point, a young voice rang from the chamber entrance. Mom? Alex poked his head in, waving his tablet. Zix from the Meridian Collective says their quantum spider pet went missing again. Can we help? The entire chamber stiffened. Jess stood up and adjusted her jacket. Of course, sweetie. Just let me grab my playlist, and the really big guns. Admiral Chen nearly dropped his datapad. Jess, please don't conquer another government. She smiled sweetly. No promises. As she walked out of the chamber humming, "We Will Rock You," delegates around the table exchanged glances that said the same thing. We've created a galactic force no one can stop. And somewhere, across countless criminal networks, shadow cabals, and unscrupulous traders, a quiet panic was setting in. Reports surfaced of low-level smugglers voluntarily surrendering after receiving simple messages like, "Your mother knows what you did." Back on New Earth Colony, Jess and Alex sat on their balcony, watching the sun set. Above them, the Thunderchild floated peacefully in orbit, its weapons powered down, its AI softly playing lullabies from Earth's forgotten centuries. Do you think anyone will ever try something like that again? Alex asked, poking at his dinner. Jess thought for a moment. I doubt it. Not now that the galaxy understands something Earth children have always known. She looked at him and smiled. You don't mess with Mom. As the dust settled across 3 fractured star systems, the message left behind wasn't just political, it was primal. It didn't come in the form of a treaty or an official broadcast. No, this message traveled deeper, etched into the very instincts of every spacefaring species that had watched the chaos unfold in real time. In dimly lit command rooms, over shaky comm feeds, across hastily redacted reports, one phrase emerged again and again. Don't mess with human moms. On Meridian's public education boards, the phrase was being quietly added to interstellar ethics modules. In Varian bureaucracy, it was included as a legal footnote under emergency response directives. Even the Crimson Dominion, what remained of it, began printing the warning on the walls of their newly converted Performing Arts Academy, right below the school motto. But for Jessica Martinez, all of it was just background noise. She wasn't chasing recognition. She wasn't building a reputation. She had one mission: to bring her son home safe. And now that Alex was sleeping soundly in his own bed, surrounded by warm light and the hum of life on New Earth Colony, Jess was finally able to sit still, at least for 5 minutes. The Thunderchild hovered peacefully in orbit above the colony, its once roaring weapons now silent, its hull still gleaming from the adrenaline-soaked campaign it had just carried out. Officially, it remained on reserve status. Unofficially, everyone in the galaxy knew exactly who it belonged to now, and they weren't about to test whether it was truly offline. Jess sipped her coffee on the balcony that evening, watching the colors of the twin suns fade into lavender dusk. Alex sat beside her, munching on noodles and scrolling through viral clips of himself being escorted through a battle station by dancing robots. I still can't believe you sent cleaning bots, he muttered. Jess smirked. They were multi-purpose. They played Baby Shark on loop. And you're alive, aren't you? He gave her a look but didn't argue. He knew better. Above them, stars blinked back into view, and with them came the memory of everything that had happened. The forms turned into song, the fleets that danced instead of fought, the hardened criminals undone not by weapons, but by rhythm, guilt, and stories of wet pajamas. And then, across galactic frequencies, a new transmission appeared. It wasn't state-issued. It didn't bear the seal of any government or council. It was just a sentence, looping every hour on every major comm channel. Remember to call your mother. She knows what you did, and she has access to the really big guns. No one claimed responsibility, but everyone knew who it came from. Even now, Jess didn't fully understand the scale of the cultural shift she had created, but the signs were everywhere. In Sector 9, a gang of space pirates surrendered to authorities after someone mailed them a hologram of their mothers looking disappointed. On Centaur Station, the phrase Protocol Monarch had been officially entered into the security handbook. Its definition? Immediate total mobilization in response to the disappearance of a civilian miner, especially if said miner's parent has interstellar combat credentials. In the Relian Confederacy, military AI units were being tested with something called maternal simulation mode, based on recorded footage of Jess's negotiation style. And deep within Varian administrative systems, despite every attempt to scrub it, one line of code kept reappearing in their forms. They never could track down who wrote it. At the Galactic Security Council headquarters, Admiral Chen stared out the window of his office with a heavy sigh. A report sat unread on his desk, something about a group of robotic vacuums that had defected from the Meridian Collective and were now touring as a pop group. He didn't even flinch when a staffer entered the room with an update. Sir, the aide said, we've received 12 more requests from planetary governments asking if Commander Martinez would be available for family safety seminars. Chen didn't turn around. Is she still listed as retired? Yes, sir, technically. The Admiral nodded slowly. Good. Let's keep it that way. Should we warn her about the quantum spider situation in the Sirius sector? No, Chen said almost too quickly. Just let her enjoy a few days of peace. Peace, of course, was a relative term. Because while the Thunderchild remained idle in orbit, its systems quietly maintained readiness. The ship's AI, once a mere tactical tool, had begun adapting to its new command style. It had integrated Jess's playlists. It had rewritten its own alert tones to match certain musical cues. It had even started inserting motivational messages like "You've got this, Mom," into its daily system diagnostics. Meanwhile, the galaxy trembled on the edge of a new cultural revolution, one where the image of a battle-hardened mother in command armor carried more deterrent power than an entire fleet. Jess had no plans for further action, but she didn't need to act anymore. Because fear, genuine, deeply earned fear, had done the rest. Across the black, from one corner of the stars to the other, whispered warnings began to rise. Don't take human kids. Don't forge Earth paperwork. Don't fake transport manifests near Sector 7. And above all, if you see a ship named Thunderchild, turn around immediately. Back on New Earth Colony, Jess finally stood, stretching slightly and looking up at the stars. She knew they were still watching her. Every faction, every council, every criminal. Let them watch, she whispered. Alex looked up at her. Think they'll ever try again? Jess smiled. They're welcome to. Then she winked, walked inside, and casually added another song to her interstellar battle playlist. It was Highway to Hell, just in case.